For the past 70 years, the American population, as well as the rest of the world, has been anticipating some kind of official disclosure, revealing the reality of flying saucers and extraterrestrials. Anticipation that our high-level military or government representatives would finally share a forthright explanation of this persistent phenomenon once and for all. Even MUFON, the National Civilian UFO Research Organization, despite a vast UFO report database gathered since 1969, still offers no definitive analysis explaining this enigma. Assuming there is some kind of substantial reality to UFOs, it would appear government policy towards this issue remains unchanged in 70 years. Wilbert Smith, head of Canadian UFO studies between 1950 and 1962, filed a top-secret Canadian government memorandum on November 21, 1950 that stated, "The matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, rating even higher than the H-bomb. Flying saucers exist. Their modus operandi is unknown, but concentrated effort is being made by a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush, head of President Truman's National Science Foundation." Given that UFOs are a legitimate reality, it would seem that over those 70 years, since the notorious Roswell UFO crash in New Mexico, government agencies have meticulously gathered and sequestered every scrap of definitive evidence of that reality, as well as doctored historical records to maintain absolute control over the public perception of this mystery. Control so comprehensive as to accommodate whatever kind of expedient cover-up spin preservation of governmental authority might require. Obviously, controlled machines of unknown origin flying in our skies would present an unavoidable national defense issue, regardless if they originated from outer space or from advanced German war technologies. Such unknowns posed a potential military threat that required immediate top-secret, top-priority research efforts to investigate, emulate, and if possible, surpass the flight performance of such exotic aircraft. But that was 70 years ago. Are we to assume that our nation still faces an imminent UFO threat so dire that even today its disclosure would be devastating? That in 70 years we still have not engineered adequate means of protection? Or is it that those exotic flying saucer propulsion technologies have been mastered, but to protect the global economic status quo, such mastery must remain secret? As well, over the last 70 years, given the increasingly diabolical, imperialist behavior of our own military-industrial complex, it would seem ultimate disclosure, rather than a presidential pronouncement or friendly alien visitation, will more likely be the national security state's own secret space armada descending from the skies to impose global martial law. Absurd, you say? Well, let's roll the clock back 70 years and see how Hollywood has likely been preparing us for just such an eventuality. In 1947, Air Force General Nathan Twining assured President Truman that with regard to UFOs, military officials would be ruthlessly guarding their secrets while evaluating every new bit of information on flying saucers they received. But at the same time, they would allow disclosure of some of the most far-fetched information, whether true or not, because it would help create a climate of public attitude that would be able to accept the existence of extraterrestrial life without a general sense of panic. Very soon the film industry made good on General Twining's mandate to sell an extraterrestrial reality to the general public, a population that in the aftermath of World War II was largely ignorant and indifferent to the notion of extraterrestrials. As well, few Americans realized that Hollywood, the entertainment capital of the world, was also the propaganda capital of the world. In fact, nestled in the Hollywood Hills was a secret motion picture studio built in 1941 located in Laurel Canyon called the Lookout Mountain Laboratory. The installation was hidden from view and surrounded by an electrified fence. By 1947, the facility featured a fully operational movie studio. It was perhaps the world's only completely self-contained movie studio. With 100,000 square feet of floor space, the covert studio included sound stages, screening rooms, film processing labs, editing facilities, an animation department, and 17 climate-controlled film vaults. It also had underground parking, a helicopter pad, and a bomb shelter. Officially, the facility was run by the United States Air Force and did nothing more nefarious than process Atomic Energy Commission footage of nuclear bomb tests. There are indications that Lookout Mountain Laboratory had an advanced research and development department that was on the cutting edge of new film technologies such as 3D effects. And Hollywood luminaries like Jimmy Stewart, Ronald Reagan, Bing Crosby, Walt Disney, and Marilyn Monroe were given clearance to work at the facility on undisclosed projects, although there is no indication that any of them ever spoke of their work at the clandestine studio. However, it is no secret that the major film studios are subsidiaries of major corporations that constitute the very heart of the national security state, and the films produced by the industry promote worldview public relations propaganda that serves the national security state's interests. Conversely, the defense industries of the military-industrial complex still maintain their profitability thanks to Hollywood's steady drumbeat media campaign to sell limitless weapons for defending freedom and democracy. So to fulfill General Twining's 1947 mandate to start selling the idea of space aliens, Hollywood obediently obliged with a series of potboiler science fiction movies filled with flying saucers, rockets, and aliens that invaded the cinema throughout the 1950s. Movies hustling a UFO terror campaign aimed at stereotyping UFOs as a menacing threat to keep the public clamoring for more Defense Department protection. The same kind of PR tactic that had worked so successfully during all of World War II. Fundamental statecraft requires the existence of an accepted external menace, then, is essential to social cohesiveness as well as to the acceptance of political authority. The menace must be believable, it must be of a magnitude consistent with the complexity of the society threatened, and it must appear at least to affect the entire society. And we see those fundamental social engineering perceptions translated into Hollywood's science fiction movies as humanity is helpless, its technology is outclassed, it must submit to the guidance of an alien elite, a master race. With these propaganda themes in mind, let's re-examine just how Hollywood portrayed them in 1950s movies. In 1951, 20th Century Fox introduced The Day the Earth Stood Still with their promotion tagline, "They came 250 million miles out of space to hold the world spellbound with new and startling powers from another planet." The scenario tells of an alien named Klaatu, who with his mighty silver robot named Gort, land their spacecraft in Washington, D.C., bringing a dire message to all nations of planet Earth, an ultimatum that the nations of the world must accept peace or be destroyed as a potential menace to other civilizations in space. But not only is this film selling the superiority of extraterrestrials, it's selling the superiority of artificial intelligence. As early as 1951, Hollywood was showcasing the singularity, the point in time when artificial intelligence surpasses human intellect, and in this case, the point when inferior humanity must submit to police state rule by superior extraterrestrial AI.
We created a race of robots. Their function is to patrol the planets in spaceships like this one and preserve the peace. In matters of aggression, we have given them absolute power over us. This power cannot be revoked. At the first sign of violence, they act automatically against the aggressor. The penalty for provoking their action is too terrible to risk. The result is we live in peace, without arms or armies, secure in the knowledge that we are free from aggression and war, free to pursue more profitable enterprises. We do not pretend to have achieved perfection, but we do have a system, and it works. I came here to give you these facts. It is no concern of ours how you run your own planet. But if you threaten to extend your violence, this Earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder. Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you.
From the outset, Hollywood has been selling a globalist agenda masked as science fiction, and certainly The Day the Earth Stood Still was the most explicit example. Hollywood's early science fiction productions were low-budget, black-and-white quickies that got by with minimal special effects, just enough to hook the imagination of an audience. So, lacking lavish computer graphics animation, 50s screenwriters often relied on the theatrical device of subjecting the story's main characters to alien mind control to carry the plot. And we see this convenient theatrical zombie gimmick used in numerous science fiction films. Case in point was 1953's 3D spectacle, It Came from Outer Space. Coming right out of the movie screen, a blazing spherical spaceship crashes in the Arizona desert, leaving sole witness amateur astronomer John Putnam struggling to convince the parochial population it was not a meteor.
Yes, it came from outer space to fill the world with terror, to bring you unforgettable suspense. What was it? Where did it come from? Who were the all-powerful creatures it brought from outer space? And what did they want on Earth?
Gradually, the alien ship's bizarre pilot, an ugly one-eyed octopus amoeba creature, reduces selected members of the townsfolk into controlled zombies to assist repairing his disabled ship. Not bent on conquest, this reasonably benign alien simply demonstrates to ignorant Earthlings creatures of superior intelligence also exist in outer space. Thanks to Paramount Pictures, Hollywood's first retelling of H.G. Wells' classic novel about alien marauders from Mars earned respectable cinema attention in 1953 with a Technicolor rendition featuring the contemporary setting of Southern California and Martian machines stylishly designed like flying saucers rather than striding tripods. But true to Wells' original story, these aliens ravage helpless Earth humanity with superior weapons, totally impervious to the most sophisticated Earth defenses, even the atomic bomb. In the end, only the divine intervention of a viral infection defeats these ruthless alien invaders. Universal Pictures followed War of the Worlds with a Technicolor space thriller of its own, This Island Earth, in 1955, an imaginative screen story that deserved better production values than it received. This epic once again featured technically superior, human-looking aliens covertly living among Earth humans and recruiting the best Earth scientists for advanced nuclear engineering projects intended to rescue their besieged alien world far out in space. These aliens piloted a silvery saucer, able to snatch airplanes right out of the sky with an eerie green energy beam. But despite silly rubber-suited monsters menacing the film's heroine, this picture's overall concept was yet another engaging, provocative public relations gimmick selling the idea of superior space aliens. Multiple flying saucers steal the show with Columbia Pictures' Earth versus the Flying Saucers and its standard fare of marauders from space. Once again, an armada of flying saucers descends upon hapless humanity. Only this time, intrepid Earth scientists win the day by devising field disruptor weapons capable of knocking the saucers out of the sky, but not before they ravage much of Washington, D.C. This film also employs the humans as alien mind control zombies trick once again. But that same year, 1956, Hollywood featured alien panspermia, reducing the whole human population to zombies with the film Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This tale features a small-town doctor who finds several of his patients suffering the paranoid delusion that their friends or relatives are imposters. He's initially skeptical, but when the doctor's investigations uncover a hideous truth that extraterrestrial seed pods are taking over all the local townsfolk, he becomes desperate to warn the world.
Suddenly, while you're asleep, they'll absorb your minds, your memories.
I don't want any part of it.
You're forgetting something, Miles.
What's that?
You have no choice.
In 1956, this film seemed a vague warning against communism, but today it serves even more dire relevance as a warning against microchip implants, transhumanism, and atmospheric chemical spraying. Just as the movie's promotion pitch declared, the nightmare that threatens the world.
You see, everyone, they're here already! You're next!
By 1956, science fiction films were becoming better financed and more sophisticated. A truly extraordinary film for its day was MGM's Technicolor CinemaScope extravaganza, Forbidden Planet, a space epic that foreshadowed America's own weaponization of space with a subtle preview of anti-gravity technology. Scientific discussion of anti-gravity propulsion during the 1950s suggested that revolutionary breakthroughs in this research were imminent. And in this film we see Earth humans, rather than aliens, piloting flying saucers across the galaxy. In fact, the military space fleet protocols we see portrayed in Forbidden Planet 10 years later would be adapted to Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek Federation Space Fleet. More of a psychological thriller, Forbidden Planet's storyline follows Space Fleet Commander J.J. Abrams and his crew, who were sent to investigate mysterious silence from a scientific expedition to distant planet Altair 4, where he finds only two survivors, Dr. Morbius and his daughter Altera. While marooned on Altair 4, Morbius has discovered remnants of an ancient civilization possessing extraordinary technologies beyond human understanding, deadly artificial intelligence technologies that consumed the very civilization that created it. Ultimately, Abrams realizes Dr. Morbius has himself been seduced by the homicidal powers of the planet's lost civilization. But Forbidden Planet, aside from its corny 1950s romance subplot and lovable robot named Robbie, is also a profoundly sophisticated, cautionary tale about artificial intelligence, suggesting a haunting threat from what we now call the singularity, a nexus point in time when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, a time when humanity may face extinction at the hands of its own technological creation. But Hollywood's brief flirtation with selling the idea of military anti-gravity propulsion began and ended with Forbidden Planet. Soon after, the Air Force demonstrated its own Avro disc flying saucer, a clumsy failure serving proof to the whole world that flying saucers can't fly. Officially, the anti-gravity topic has remained closed since 1961. Nearly 20 years of science fiction movies thoroughly conditioned audiences for Hollywood's next quantum leap, 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film of unparalleled sophistication and Stanley Kubrick's transcendent masterpiece. But 2001, more than a visually stunning space epic, played as a dynamic propaganda piece functioning on multiple levels. Released in 1968, it served as a huge PR send-off preceding NASA's Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. It also warned about the dangers of artificial intelligence, as well as bluntly suggesting government cover-up of an extraterrestrial reality. And ultimately, 2001 engaged abstract metaphysical speculation about the nature of man's spiritual destiny. Kubrick's 2001 not only set the standard for all science fiction films to follow, it also locked into the public perception what is visually accepted as spaceflight reality, particularly the theatrical device of slow-motion movement simulating zero or low-gravity environments. We see this same device used a year later in perhaps Kubrick's greatest film blockbuster, the Apollo 11 moon landing. In 1968, Kubrick had already profoundly established in the public perception just how spaceflight should look, a visual precedent repeated in subsequent Apollo moon missions. So, of course, according to virulent conspiracy theory research, Kubrick is credited with secretly filming NASA's Apollo landings on a Hollywood soundstage. A notion that seems totally plausible considering the disastrous political climate sweeping America the year 2001: A Space Odyssey was originally released, the dangerously turbulent year 1968. The Pentagon was facing military defeat in Vietnam, anti-war and civil rights protest violence rocked cities across the country, forcing President Lyndon Johnson to withdraw from re-election. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy were both murdered, and Richard Nixon, narrowly winning presidential election victory that year, desperately needed some kind of spectacular event to restore at least a shred of American prestige and dignity. Failure of Apollo 11's July 20th, 1969 mission was simply not an option. So real or not, the American public was served a spectacular moon landing success in 1969, perhaps the final tribute to America's lost innocence. But Stanley Kubrick may have used 2001 to convey themes actually counter to the establishment propaganda of earlier science fiction films, as he focused on Odyssey's fictional space agency deliberately withholding disclosure of an alien artifact discovered on the moon. As well, he portrays artificial intelligence as arrogant and homicidal, with villainous talking computer Hal seeking total domination over his ship's inferior human crew.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Following the film's story arc from ape men to astronauts, we see human evolution altered at key junctures by incomprehensible overlords manifesting as imposing black monoliths. Kubrick shows humanity's progression from a simple bone weapon tool to full codependency on machines that ultimately reduces man to near robotic status as astronauts locked in a sterile mechanical womb of a spaceship. Only by disabling homicidal computer Hal and exiting his spaceship does sole survivor David Bowman liberate himself from mechanical instrumentalities altogether and face the monolith overlord's next evolutionary alteration of human consciousness. Actually, Stanley Kubrick's Odyssey contains a diabolically clever inside joke, considering the flat ratio dimensions of his film's monolith obelisk are the same ratio dimensions as a motion picture screen. meaning that just as the ape tribe's consciousness was altered by staring at the monolith, so do images dancing on a motion picture screen alter the consciousness of the audience. Nearly a decade after 2001: A Space Odyssey, filmmaker Steven Spielberg offered yet another quantum leap in science fiction films with his classic production, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This film as well employed the special effects genius Douglas Trumbull, veteran of Kubrick's Odyssey, to provide the stunning UFO visuals. Close Encounters gained blockbuster status as one of the biggest moneymakers of all time, demonstrating that 40 years of Hollywood sci-fi propaganda had paid off by convincing nearly 80% of the population that extraterrestrials actually exist. Spielberg's scenario features the convergence of two parallel storylines. A group of research scientists from a variety of backgrounds are investigating strange paranormal phenomena around the world, while a pair of rural Indiana residents who share a nighttime UFO encounter follow a mysterious obsessive quest to Devil's Tower, Wyoming, where they discover those same globe-trotting scientists are preparing a top-secret extraterrestrial landing event. Once again, Close Encounters shows how technically outclassed humans are dazzled by extraterrestrial overlords, who in this film manifest as childlike gray aliens. But despite their cute Disney charm, Spielberg's Greys exhibit schizophrenic, amoral attitude extremes when dealing with humans, terrorizing a mother by literally tearing her child from her arms, then returning the boy like an unharmed lab rat days later, as if it were perfectly acceptable to do so. But perhaps these nearly intellectually incomprehensible alien overlords, who communicated with a simple 5-note musical sequence, did in fact regard humans as little more than lab rats. Of course, Spielberg's aliens, although bathed in angelic white light, bear an unmistakable resemblance to alleged extraterrestrials that over the following decade would gain popular mass media promotion as the Greys, small fetus-like creatures that would become inextricably linked to the notorious UFO abduction scenario. But despite media popularity of such extraterrestrials, Hollywood has been careful to conceal the fact that gray aliens also bear an uncanny resemblance to supernatural entities conjured up by Satanist Aleister Crowley. From January through March of 1918, noted British occultist Aleister Crowley began a series of sexual magic ceremonies in a New York City Central Park West apartment to intentionally open a portal of entry, allowing demonic entities passageway access to our Earth-world reality. Crowley was convinced that seeking contact with supernatural overlords offered the only salvation to the human race. My observation of the universe convinces me that there are beings of intelligence and power of a far higher quality than anything we can conceive of as human. That they are not necessarily based on the cerebral and nervous structures that we know, and that the one and only chance for mankind to advance as a whole is for individuals to make contact with such beings. The drawing of Crowley's hyperdimensional overlord bears a striking resemblance to what has become commonly referred to as the gray aliens, slight-bodied, big-headed, large dark-eyed mannequin creatures that bear an uncanny resemblance to reported UFO entities popularized during the 1980s thanks to Whitley Strieber's best-selling book Communion, as well as Spielberg's Close Encounters, and a host of Hollywood alien movies that would follow. And of course, it's common knowledge that within the entertainment industry, Aleister Crowley is highly regarded as a cult hero. And the use of technology and the occult to open dimensional portals for hyperdimensional entities to access our Earth reality is yet another popular Hollywood theme in movies like Ghostbusters, The Avengers, and Doctor Strange. By now, it should seem obvious that after 70 years, expecting some kind of legitimate disclosure regarding UFOs and extraterrestrials from national government sources is absurd. Since 1947, the federal government is a political entity whose power has been eclipsed by the private corporate interests of the national security state. And conversely, the corporate infrastructure of the national security state owns and operates Hollywood. With this in mind, it may be quite possible that Hollywood insiders access more classified secrets than Washington. The official Obama White House response to the alien question was, "The United States government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet, or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye." Certainly a definitive disclaimer, but then any president would only reveal as much as his intelligence agency advisors would allow. Skunkworks aerospace engineer, the late Ben Rich, stated, "We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity." So while ardent UFO researchers have been impotently dithering and sputtering about flying saucers and aliens for 70 years, it seems quite likely, as Ben Rich implied, that these topics have been clever distractions from top-secret defense projects the whole time. And more recently, while UFO researchers and whistleblowers like Gary McKinnon have been obsessing over an alleged secret space program, once again, Hollywood has been explicitly disclosing the means and motives of space weaponization for all to see. Why waste idle banter speculating about a secret space program when you can go to the theater and learn all about it? Marvel Studios, a Disney Viacom corporate entity, in 2014 premiered its second installment to the Captain America movie series, Captain America the Winter Soldier, as a full-fledged infomercial for the Deep State's secret space program. Traditionally, Hollywood serves as the town crier for the national security state to publicly showcase its one world order ambitions, and Captain America the Winter Soldier is no exception. Despite this film's tediously overwrought action scenes, it does graphically reveal the overall plan of a technocratic elite to create an enslaved, biologically retarded mass population under the dominance of an artificial intelligence grid. Intrepid superhero Steve Rogers is pitted against the launch of space battleships bent on full-spectrum dominance, bristling with beam weapon cannons and propelled with anti-gravity engines, the work of Iron Man Tony Stark's genius father, Howard Stark, a fictional remake of Howard Hughes and his corporate defense industry empire. Segments of this film could easily have been pulled directly from the whistleblower testimony of former Navy engineer William Tompkins, who in 2016 confided, "I was assigned to design for the Navy about 16 to 18 different classes of United States Navy battle group ships. These ships fly in space. I designed United States Navy spacecraft carriers, which finally got built back in the late 70s up in Utah underneath the ground." And the Captain America movie shows spaceships constructed in underground bunkers powered by anti-gravity propulsion advanced from top-secret World War II Nazi engineering projects, just as Tompkins stated. Upon viewing these ominous warships, hero Steve Rogers understandably questions whether such weapons are intended for defense or domination. The same questions we're asking about the secret space program right now. Researcher-author Jay Dyer, in his brilliant book Esoteric Hollywood, offers a dynamic analysis of the political, historic, and esoteric social impact of Hollywood film productions. He states that in all of Hollywood's major releases, the establishment is conveying and encoding real-world politics and black-budget agendas in a profound way. With regard to the issue of UFOs and extraterrestrials, Dyer further states, From my research, the alien mythos is a completely manufactured psyop phenomenon, used for several purposes, including as a cover for drug running, secret technology, and in the long run, as a possible scenario for mass manipulation. The ability to program mass populations to believe entirely false ideologies is the very nature of all historic statecraft. From his film history research, Dyer concludes the space alien mythos was an expedient cover for advancing secret post-World War II aerospace technologies specifically targeted for weaponizing space. And Hollywood's role has been indispensable in manufacturing that space aliens diversion. Eyes wide shut means we see, yet we do not comprehend. From the outset, Hollywood has been selling a globalist agenda masked as science fiction, and the totalitarian police state prophesized in The Day the Earth Stood Still may well come to be enforced not by aliens, but by our own secret space fleet.